Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are live on May 16th, and today's webinar is being recorded. Today's webinar will be Funding Your Small Business with Russ Siegel. I am Alyssa Atkins, your Training and Development Coordinator, and I will also be for the Native Learning Center, and I will also be your webinar facilitator today. Just a quick disclaimer, this webinar provides a summary of fundamental concepts, requirements, and/or procedures within the allotted 90 minutes. The material discussed does not illustrate all possible scenarios that could be applicable. If you look at the top of your screen, you will see an icon of either a person with their hand raised or just a hand. With that icon, you can either raise hand, agree, disagree, or step away. Now your screen should look similar to this graphic here. To the bottom left, you will see a box that says Files. Here you will find today's presentation. Please feel free to download a copy for yourself. Simply click the item you would like to download, then click the arrow pointing downwards, and you will be prompted to save or print the materials based on your device's permissions. The second box that states web links to houses today's survey, as well as any other links that are found throughout the presentation. Lastly, to the right of the screen, we have a chat box available. This is how you will communicate to the instructor and NLC staff. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to interact by using the chat box. Simply type your message and hit enter, or click that up arrow icon button to submit. We encourage class participation, so please feel free to write in those questions or comments. Tech support issues should also be submitted here. It is with a great pleasure that I introduce today's webinar subject matter expert, Russ Siegel.
Thank you, and thank you for joining me. Usually when I do webinars, people can see my face. It's actually a good thing that you can't see my face today. One of our employees brought her baby by, and I had to get some snuggles in, and I also got some spit up on my shirt. So it's really a good thing that everybody can't see me today. But I'm really excited about this topic. This is one of my favorite things. This is what we do every day at Sequoia Fund, is helping people find the capital they need to build a business they love. And today is going to be a lot like drinking through a fire hose for about the next 90 minutes, 88 minutes now. We are going to give you a lot of content, and that's why I've given you today's slide deck in PDF format. Down in the files, please do go ahead and you can download that. I also have a little extra tool for you there on preparing for a business loan. It's one of those summary sheets that's going to help you as you move forward in your business planning. But I've also got some things that I'm going to give you at the end of the program. I've got some links for you that are going to be very valuable for your business and for your funding pursuit. So a little bit about me. I've been helping small businesses. I guess I should change this. It's now over 25 years. I guess I just lost track of time. Time flies when you're having fun. And I've been working with small businesses now for over a quarter century to help people start businesses they love, to do the work that they want to do, that gets them excited every morning to get out of bed. And I hope that's what you're preparing to do as you look at funding a small business opportunity. I've been a professional speaker and consultant since 2000, and I am very fortunate to be the executive director of Sequoia Fund, a native CDFI serving the Eastern Band of Cherokee here in Western North Carolina. So for those of you who don't know where Cherokee, North Carolina is, I always tell people we are centrally located, halfway between New York and Miami. We're in that pointy left tip of North Carolina, about an hour west of Asheville, and we're the ancestral homeland of the Cherokee, and very happy to be able to serve this community in what we do. We have, and I'm getting a message here that someone can't hear something. I'm just wanting to check, make sure. Awista, can you just verify that people can hear me, or that you can hear me?
Yes, of course. I can hear you, and I'm working on getting her sound right now.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I didn't want to go too much further without that confirmation. So I do know a thing or two about lending, and I've read a lot of business plans, hundreds and hundreds of business plans, worked with hundreds of clients. So you're going to get, just in the next little bit of time, the benefit of all of that exposure, all of that experience in working with small businesses. We're going to talk about how lenders look at you, because lenders do look at you through a very specific lens. I'm going to talk about how native lenders look at you versus traditional lenders. I'm going to tell you how to look good on paper. I used to have a friend who was a coach at a college program, and he said that he wanted his team to look good getting off the bus. And I'm going to help you look good on paper so that when you walk into a lender, you've got all of your ducks in a row, you're ready to go. I'm going to talk to you about some non-bank lending sources. I always encourage people to start with a bank. I'll tell you why a little bit later, but there are some non-bank lending sources who definitely want to say yes to your business, and I'm going to tell you how to find them. We'll talk about the two most important financial metrics that you have to include in your business plan. Now, a lot of people will tell you that there's a lot of things that need to go into a business plan. I'm going to give you a very simple outline, just a list of questions. And then at the end, I'm going to give you one of those tools that I mentioned is going to be a fill in the blank business plan template that's going to help you get everything that's swimming around in your head down on paper. We'll talk about developing a plan when things go wrong, because we always like to have a backup plan when things go wrong. But what if things go too right? Is it even possible? Yes, it is. And we'll talk about why you need a plan for that as well, and how to navigate the funding landscape in a post-COVID world. And folks, commercial lending, business lending is changing now weekly and even daily. There are a lot of moving parts to funding small businesses these days, and I want to make sure you're prepared for the good, the bad, and the ugly. So here's why you can't always bank on banks. Banks have a very specific lens that they are looking at us through. They don't like to take risks. In fact, there's a bank here in town who we have a great relationship with, by the way, but we have always joked that they have been very successful throughout the years because they don't make loans. And it's true. They will even acknowledge that. Loans are risky, and they see startup risks as too high. Now, if you want to borrow money for a house, they know that you're going to fight to keep that house. You're going to do whatever you have to do to have a place to live. And so it's a fairly secure, not completely risk-free, but a more secure bet that they're making on you. Same thing goes for a vehicle. They know that you have to have transportation. You're less likely to default on a home or a car. But a business, wow, this is getting into some murky territory, because a business a lot of times doesn't even exist outside the founder's head. This is something that you have dreamed up, something that you have been thinking about, something that you have been ruminating on, but it doesn't yet exist. And to take this thing that doesn't exist and somehow on paper prove that it will make money and help you be more successful, well, that's a tall order. So they do see small businesses as risky. You have no track record as a startup. They don't know you. They may know you, but they don't know this idea. They may not know your industry. Everything that you're putting on paper is your best educated guess, and banks live in a world of certainty. And because they like houses and they like vehicles, they like real estate, chances are they're going to want more collateral than you have available. Most of the time, small businesses, the startups, they have limited or even no assets, especially today. I remember our first youth camp that we did years ago, back in about 2012 or 2013, when we had kids first coming through saying, I want to be a YouTube influencer. Today, I guess it would be an Instagram influencer. But yes, there are people out there making millions of dollars being influencers, but they have no collateral. They can't borrow money. Banks want to know that you have assets. You have also no established pattern of cash flow. A brand new business, until it's about 2 years old, is considered a startup. There's no consistent revenue stream. Maybe you're still figuring out your pricing. Maybe your customers are still discovering that you even exist, but your revenue is too unpredictable to get a bank to take you seriously. You as a founder, may have inadequate credit history. Doesn't mean that you have bad credit history. Let me be clear. You can have good credit history, but you may not have enough credit history to warrant a bank loan. There's an old saying that banks lend money to people, not to businesses. And it's absolutely true. It's even true in the world of the native CDFI where we operate. We lend money to people. Now, we don't put all of our stock in your credit history, but banks do. Unfortunately, our lives get boiled down to a 3-digit credit score. And that 3-digit number tells banks, yes, you've crossed the barrier, you can qualify for a loan, or no, there's no need to talk to us anymore. And today, well, this has always been the case, but even more so today. The business plan doesn't really fit the mold. We have a lot of Gen Y and Gen Z borrowers who are coming in with business plans that don't look like the traditional old school business plans. And I think that's great. In fact, one of the best business plans that I've ever seen, and we were talking about that this morning, that one of the best I've ever seen was a handwritten business plan in pencil that was ripped out of a spiral bound notebook. It was for a handyman business. And on the first page, he had even drawn himself. He drew a cartoon of himself, and it was his cover page. It was a 10-page business plan, and it told everything we needed to know to fund that business. It was perfect. It was great. And I wouldn't change a thing. I've even seen business plans come through that are what are called the business model canvas. If you haven't looked into the business model canvas or the lean canvas, there are books written on this. This is a whole concept where everything about the business can be boiled down to one page. I highly recommend looking into the business model canvas. Again, if we have questions, we can ask questions. But Mark Twain once told a friend, I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have time. He knew the value in editing. He knew the value of brevity. He knew how hard it was to edit something down. So what we usually tell people is your business plan doesn't need to be any more than about 15 pages. If it's more than 15 pages, we're not going to read it anyway, and certainly the bank isn't going to read it. But the bank wants to see that good old big, thick, bulky, beefy business plan. That's what they're looking for, because most of the people who are making the decisions are not Generation Z. They're not Generation Y. They're like me. They're Gen Xers or they're baby boomers. They're older people. They have a mold that they want to put you into. So they're not used to seeing businesses that are being born today in the fashion they're being born today. This is how they look at us. This is how banks do things. They look at your character. Again, that 3-digit number that we get boiled down to tells them, are you the kind of person who keeps your promises? Are you the person who, when you sign that loan document, you are going to pay that loan? That's what the 3-digit credit score tells them. Now, it doesn't tell them everything, because I've never seen anybody who got up in the morning and said, you know what, I think I'm going to have a massive heart attack today and be out of work for the next 6 months. And I'm just going to let my credit go in the tank. I've never seen anybody who said, I think on the way to work this morning, I'm going to wrap my car around a tree and I'm going to be out of work for about 6 weeks and let my credit just be terrible. Nobody has ever said that. And yet these things happen. This is real life. People get divorced. People have personal tragedies. They have family emergencies. They have family issues. They have things that drag their credit down. But to a banker, it just looks like you didn't pay your bills. So they're looking at character. Now, we look at character too in the native CDFI world, but we look at it in a very different way. I'll explain that in just a moment. But they also look at capacity. Now, this is important. I'm not going to lie. Capacity is the ability of your business to generate cash. In other words, is your business going to flounder for years and you're going to keep putting money into it and you're going to keep feeding it and trying to keep it from starving to death, and then it just eventually collapses? Or is this business going to become a money machine that can help you pay your bills? Very big distinction, and that's one that we're looking for. We want to know that the business can make the payments. Capital. Do you have money that you can put into the business? How much? Are you willing to take a bet on yourself? Are you willing to invest in you? We have a lot of people who walk in the door. They say, I want a 100% loan. I want you to fund 100% of this business. Well, if you're not willing to make a bet on yourself, why should anyone else? We want to know that you believe in yourself, and that's what the capital represents. It's your belief in yourself. Conditions. Again, this is important. It's not that these things aren't important, but there is a distinction here that we're going to get to, I promise. Conditions are important. Look, we have 2 companies in this country that press vinyl records. In fact, last year, we sold more records, not we, but more vinyl records were sold in this country than CD albums. So if you want to be a musical purist, you want to hear that old pop and crackle, get yourself a good old record player, and they're making a comeback too, and start investing in vinyl records again. But is there really room for a third company? Do we need a third? Are you trying to get into the newspaper business? Heck, even old newspaper companies are trying to get out of the newspaper business. They're trying to figure out a way to deliver news without the newspaper. Conditions looks at how friendly is the economy toward your business idea. How friendly has the economy been? How friendly do you expect it to be? Is this a fad, a flash in the pan, something that is really hot right now and it's going to go away? Or is it a long-term bet? Back during COVID, we had a company that it was a completely unrelated business, but he made his own fuel from corn oil, from used cooking oils. But he had the infrastructure during COVID to start making hand sanitizer. And they did. They started distilling, they started making hand sanitizer, and the company just grew by leaps and bounds. Now, was that something they wanted to continue to do forever to compete with the likes of Purell or other big companies, Johnson & Johnson, people who make that stuff at scale, massive scale? Probably not. Do they still do it? Yes, they do. It is now a nice side income to their jewelry business. But it's not their main business because the conditions didn't maintain that. So you have to be able to look out over the horizon a little bit to see what's next. Now, last on the list, and it's last for a reason, is collateral. Collateral, remember I said you're willing to fight to keep your house. You may be willing to fight to keep your car. But that old boat that's sitting out in the backyard, well, that's a project, but it's not collateral because it doesn't mean anything to us. In fact, collateral in general doesn't mean anything to a lender. We take it only so you will have something to fight to keep. If it's not worth you fighting to keep it, it's certainly not worth anything to us. In fact, we've had instances where we've gotten pennies on the dollar for collateral that we've recovered, and by the time we tow it, store it, market it, sell it, transfer it, the borrower owes us more money than they did before we recovered the collateral. So in a lot of cases, collateral is worse than worthless. But we put a lot of stock in that. As borrowers, we say, well, I don't have a great idea and I don't have a lot of money, but I've got a lot of collateral. I've got some land over here I'll give you. Well, that's great. Banks are not necessarily in the land collection business and the land sale business. They just want to know that you're going to be willing to fight to keep it. So how do we look good on paper for these things, to look good through this lens? Well, we need to start getting our financial house in order. Do you pay your bills on time? Do you keep up with your checkbook reconciliation? Do you balance that checkbook every month? Or do you kind of wander through life and say, well, I wonder how much money I have in my account today. I think I'll look at my app on my phone and maybe I won't have any bills coming up in the next few days. I think I'm going to make it to payday. We have found that more organization at home leads to better success in business. If you are the kind of person who keeps up with your money, you budget your money, you follow your budget, you know where your money is, you know how much money you have in the bank, you're going to be more successful in your small business. And it may take a while to get your financial house in order. This may not be something that you can do in a week or a month. It may take you a year. It may take you 3 years. It's a process. It's not an event. So the advice is to get started today. Reduce your debt. In any case, remember, banks lend money to people, not businesses. Your business doesn't have any debt because it doesn't exist yet, but you do. Is there something there that is troublesome? Do you owe a lot of money on your credit cards? Are you paying a lot for car loans, for student loans? Are there dollars going out the door that could be spent in other ways if you just paid those loans off? Well, hey, I'm a big fan of Dave Ramsey and others like him who are just all about get that debt paid down, reduce the debt, eliminate the debt. Now's a good time to start. So go ahead and start moving in that direction. You're going to make yourself more attractive to any lender when you do that. And in the process, start setting aside some cash. One of the easiest ways to do this is look at the habits you have, look at the things you spend money on, and be conscious of those. There was a time when I was heavily addicted to Mountain Dew. And I got to admit, I still am. Like any other addict, you don't stop being an addict. You can stop using. And I quit the Mountain Dews. On occasion, as a celebration, I will have a Mountain Dew, and it's really hard for me to not have the second Mountain Dew. But when you used to have 6 to 9 20-ounce Mountain Dews a day, number one, it's terrible for your body. I'm not going to admit, I'm not going to lie to you. I gained a lot of weight on Mountain Dew. But look at what it does every time you put $1.25 into a drink machine or $1.50 into a drink machine. How much was that costing me? When I started to be aware of how much Mountain Dew was costing me, not just in terms of my health, but in terms of financial health, I was able to capture that money. And when you start taking that $1.50 and instead of putting it into the drink machine, you put it in a shoebox or a purse or a wallet or a safe, or just stick it in the bank or under your mattress or somewhere else. When you start to sock away a little bit of cash, it makes it easier to start getting in the habit of setting aside more cash. You also want to start evaluating your collateral value. What is that old boat in the backyard worth? Is it something that you'd be better off to sell and hang on to the cash? Because if it's been there long enough, deep down, you know you're not going to be working on that old boat. So start to look at what is the true value, what is the market value of the things that you consider collateral. Are you better off to just get rid of it, convert that to cash? And last but not least, you need to know your industry. You need to be able to look out over the horizon and see what are the trends that this industry is going to experience. What has it experienced? What are we getting ready to go through? What happens if the worst happens? Who are my customers? Where are my customers? All those things, we have to have a full understanding of that. That's why I'm not a real big fan of having someone else write your business plan for you, because eventually somebody's going to ask you the questions. And you need to be able to answer those questions, not just to say, well, somebody else wrote this, so I'm not sure. I'll have to get back to you. If you write your business plan, you'll know the answer. You'll know your industry. Let's look at a very different way, though, of looking at borrowers. Let's look at a way that I actually I was kind of skeptical about it at first. I'm not going to lie, but I really do like this. We actually use it in conjunction with other things, but I love this. It's the 5 R's of native credit. Indian Collective came up with this, and it looks like our Awista here's this actually does look like our lettering got off a little bit. I'm sorry about that. So just imagine that these words are spelled correctly. But the 5 R's of native credit begins with relational. What are the relationships that this business has? What are the relationships that this business can create? What are the relationships that this business can foster, can repair, improve? What are it's all about people. And again, if we're going to lend money to people, we have to know that people are going to be involved in the business. Lou Holtz, famous football coach, once said that unless you're carrying a golf club or a tennis racket, everything you do is a team sport. And he's right. Your business is going to be a team sport. You're going to have customers. You're going to have suppliers. You're going to have a local landlord. You're going to have local people who depend on you. You're going to have everything from mail carriers to truck drivers. Everybody is part of that relationship. You need to understand how you fit into that tapestry. Is the business rooted? Is the business rooted in community? Is the business rooted in traditional values? I think everybody's had someone move into the community and say, I'm from somewhere else and I'm here to change things. I don't know if you can tell by my accent, if you joined us a little bit late, I live in Western North Carolina, and that happens all the time, and we don't really appreciate it. We want to know that the business is rooted here. The business is rooted in family. The business is rooted in the community. The business is rooted in values that everyone shares. Is the business restorative? In other words, is this business going to have the capacity to change lives, to help people, the people you employ, the people you buy from, the people you sell to? Is this business good for them? Is the business regenerative? Now, this we could say that maybe is overlaid with capacity, but is the business the type of business that can renew itself, create enough cash to survive, create enough cash to take care of you and the people you hire, the people who depend on you? And can the business adapt? Can the business adapt to changing environments? I love the word regenerative because we don't think about that in terms of business very often. And is the business revolutionary? Now, starting a hot dog stand on the corner is not necessarily rocket science, and it is not a brand new idea. I think it's been done before. But if it's the first one in your community, if it fills a need, if it satisfies a desire that people have had, that's revolutionary. You don't have to be the first gas station in town. If you're the first gas station in town that people need, maybe there's a gas station way outside of your local area, and people have to drive to get gas. Maybe they have to drive to get groceries. Again, it's not a matter of the concept being revolutionary, but that location is life-changing for a lot of people. So if we look at these 5 things, relational, rooted, restorative, regenerative, revolutionary, is this anything you've ever heard a bank talk about? Is this anything you've ever heard a bank ask about or look into or care about? I've been doing this over 25 years, and I can't think of a single time when a bank asked these questions. So how do we look good on paper in terms of the 5 R's? Well, we need to focus on those relationships. We need to, in our plan, we need to be able to talk about those relationships. And one of the questions that my board asks a lot of times, especially if they don't know the borrower directly, here's the question. They say, who's his people? Who's her people? They want to know, how was this person brought up? Was this person brought up to be responsible? Was this person brought up, oh yeah, I know his daddy. Yes, I know her mama. Yes, I know their grandparents. We've known their family. I didn't know this person, but I've known their family for years. Good people. Those are the kinds of relationships that get your foot in the door, that get you off the launching pad. Who's your people? You got to show commitment to community. A lot of times people write business plans about how the business is going to be good for me, me, me. What was that old Toby Keith song? I want to talk about me. I want to talk about my. Well, that's what we do in a business plan. We talk about us. But how is this business going to be good for the community? How is it going to benefit my neighbors when I move into that spot downtown, when I move into that storefront, when I move into that space? How is this going to be good for my neighbors? Am I going to be a good fit for that shopping center? Am I going to be a good fit for this neighborhood, for this community, for the reservation? How am I going to fit in here? Or am I just in this for me? We need to show how we can help build up and develop people through the business. I had a business professor once who said, if people are not developing, they're dying. And at work, that's absolutely true. And you can look around and see people you've worked with who are getting something out of their work. They're getting pleasure out of their work. They're getting satisfaction out of their work. They're learning something new every day. They wake up every morning and say, I'm going to do something new. I'm going to try something new. I'm going to learn something new. And those people develop. Sometimes they do it with the company's help, and sometimes they do it on their own. But if they're just there to collect a paycheck and mark time and go home, they're dying. So how can we show that our business is going to help develop people? One of our former success stories, she ran a construction company. And I remember every time she came in here, she said, hey, I'm employing my people. I'm feeding my people. I'm helping my people. She kept her eyes so focused on that everything else worked. Because when she was developing people, the people were developing her business. Can we demonstrate how the business has a larger benefit to the community? Not just to us, not just putting money in our bank account, but again, going back to that community fit. How do we have a larger role? Maybe if we make money, we can donate to children's programs. Maybe we can donate to elders programs. Maybe we can donate to food bank or a nonprofit. Maybe we can give back to the community in some way by having happy people who work for us take a day off. And like we do around here in Cherokee, we have Elders Day. People go out and they repair driveways. They fix wheelchair ramps. They clean windows. They do things for people. And the ones who are able to do that is demonstrating how your business can have a larger benefit. And we have to clearly explain the problem we're solving. And folks, we're all in the same business. It doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter what you sell. It doesn't matter where you are. Every one of us is selling the same two things. We're selling a solution to a problem, and we're selling a good feeling. If you create a good feeling alone, sometimes that's enough. Theme parks come to mind. That's a good feeling. If you're a roller coaster nut like I am, sometimes a good theme park is a reward in itself. It doesn't really solve a problem. I don't have an internal need to go ride a roller coaster. But if you can do both of those things, you've hit a home run. If you can clearly solve a problem that is well defined, that you know people have, and you make them feel good, who can compete with you? Who can touch that? You have hit a home run. So again, this is the stuff you've got to kind of get figured out as you move forward in your business planning. And your business plan does not have to be a theme paper. It doesn't have to be one of those high school research papers or college research papers. It doesn't have to be a thesis or a dissertation with footnotes and endnotes and reference materials and everything else. No, it's a story. The beautiful thing about this, our brains are wired for stories. Our brains are hardwired to tell stories and to listen to stories, to read stories. So if you can tell a story in a compelling way, you've got a business plan. So let's break this down really quickly. Here's your story. Who are you? You're going to answer some of the questions we've just talked about. What is your expertise? What is your background? What is your certification? What is your interest in this? I remember if you used to watch The Office, there was an episode of The Office where Michael Scott, and I can't even remember what the business idea was, but somebody poo-pooed the idea and he said, "This is a dream I've had since lunch. Don't crush it." Now, if this is just a dream you've had since lunch, you're not going to be able to explain it very well. But you should be able to tell why you want to do this. Who are you? You have to blow your own horn or there's no music, because we lend money to people. We want to know that you have the ability to move this idea forward. Get in the Wayback Machine. Think about the very first job you had. Think about principles that your family taught you, that you learned on the job, that you carry with you to this day, that have helped you become a trusted person, somebody who people can turn to get things done, who can be productive, honest, all the other things that kind of go along with the kind of person you'd want to buy from yourself. Are you the kind of person you'd want to do business with? Who are you? Talk about that. Who will sell what? Well, we can all talk about the technical stuff. I can talk about money all day. I can talk to you about our loan products all day. I can tell you about our car loans. I can tell you about our home rehab loans. But if I'm talking to you about a car loan and you need a business loan, I'm just preaching. I'm not listening to you. Who will sell what? We have to talk about the problem we solve and the good feeling we create. If you can go through to that level, you're telling a story. Yes, we have a car loan. Yes, we have a home rehab loan. But how does that change your life? How does that help you do what you need to do? How does that help your kids be nice and warm in the winter, or helps you be cool in the summer? How does it help cut your energy bill? We've got to start talking about things that are important to people, and that is the problem that you're solving and the good feeling. Now, to whom? This is your customer. We're going to talk a little bit more about your customer, but we have to be able to clearly define our customer. I'm going to tell you a new word for customer here in just a moment. You may have heard it, you may not have, but who are we selling to? To whom are we selling? As my ninth grade teacher would want me to say. Who are they? If we can define them, we can find them. Let me repeat that. If we can define them, we can find them. Where are they? Are they accessible? Are they all across the world and we're shipping to them from a garage that's attached to our house? Are they just down the street? You know, if I have a bodega in downtown Manhattan, my entire world is probably going to be just a block. I don't really care what happens 2 blocks over because there's 5 other bodegas between me and that space. I want to know who's walking by my bodega every day at this time. So my world is very small. But if I have a grocery store out in the middle of nowhere, I may be pulling people from 20, 30, 40, 50 miles away. Where are my customers? What is it going to cost me to get my products or services into their hands? If you ever watch an episode of Shark Tank, you'll know that's one of their favorite questions. What is your cost structure? They want to know what it costs, not just to make it, but to package it, to transport it, to put it in the hands of the customer. So yes, your garage turned warehouse may be a great cost savings in terms of facilities costs, but it may be costing you an arm and a leg to ship because they can't get trucks to you and you're having to ship out in small quantities and your shipping cost is more and it costs you more to hold things in that small space. What does it cost you to get this to your customer? And what is your price? Your price is one of the most critical decisions you can make in your business. And people do it wrong all the time. Now, I don't want to go too deep into this because there's some resources and we can help you out. And you're going to get a phone number from me later on. So even if you can't find somebody in your own backyard, you can always call me and I can help you. That's the deal that I make with anybody I do a webinar for, is that I'm a resource for the people who attend. So your price is really critical. And think about it this way. It's like walking along a fence, the top of a fence. On one side, you have to be very attractive to your customers, so attractive that they want to buy from you. But you also, on the other side of the fence, have to be profitable. Your price has to be so profitable that it keeps you in business. You have to walk that very thin line so that you don't lean too far in one direction, because if you're too profitable, it may mean that your price is so high nobody will pay it and you're not attractive to your customers. You might be so attractive to your customers that it means your price is so low that you're selling yourself out of business. So there are some ways that you can come up with your pricing that will help put you in that sweet spot of being attractive to customers and also being profitable. But you have to know what that price is. Once you've answered these questions, who will sell what to whom, where, what cost, and what price, you've told your story. There's your business plan. Everything else is details. That's the story right there that people are going to be interested in. And that's really the bulk of what you need. Chances are, if you've been thinking about this business, well, since before lunch, I would say 80% of what you need to answer these questions is already floating around in your head. And that's why I'm going to give you the fill in the blank business plan template so that you can sort of just do a brain dump, get all that stuff out on paper so that it makes more sense. So who are your customers? Okay, the term now is avatar, not the 7.5-foot tall blue James Cameron avatars, the movie avatars. That's a different avatar. The way marketers define avatar these days is an avatar is the idealized representation of your perfect customer. Let me repeat that. Your avatar is the idealized representation of your perfect customer. You may want to sell to everyone. Great. World domination, go for it. But you have one person, one type of person who will stand out in the rain for tickets to your concert. They will camp out in the parking lot for the next iteration of your iPhone. They will tattoo your name on their body, like Harley Davidson riders. They will do whatever they can to prove their love for you. That's an avatar. If you can find those people and then you can write a description of those people, then you can start to talk to those people, market to those people, your email messages, your advertising messages, your social media posts, everything you do talks to that avatar. Now, other people are going to listen and other people are going to be intrigued. Other people are going to start buying from you, and that's great. But don't talk to them. Talk to your avatar. There have been companies who have known who their avatar is for decades, and they're very happy, and they're industry leaders. And all of a sudden, they start talking to another group and say, wait a minute, I'm going to talk to these other folks over here. I'm going to forget about my avatar. And then the avatars, millions of them in some cases, say, wait a minute, we thought you loved us. Why are you talking to them? They were buying from you, but we're the ones who love you. We're the ones who are loyal to you. The avatar is just very simply a description. And if you can sit down and write a paragraph to describe who that avatar is, trust me, it's going to be much easier to know exactly when you've found them. There's an old maritime saying that if you have no port in mind, any wind is a good wind. In other words, if you're just out there sailing, that's fine. But you have to know where you want to go if you want to catch the right wind. You have to be able to clearly define, articulate the problem you solve and the good feeling you create. Again, you're going to write this down. What is the problem that you're looking to solve? Now, the person who buys a Timex watch may just want to tell time. They may want something that can take a licking and keep on ticking. I'm dating myself there for those of you who are old enough to remember that ad campaign. They may just want a tough watch because apparently watches are making a comeback. But a Rolex will do the same thing. Why would you pay $15,000 or $30,000 plus for a Tag Heuer? Why would you pay that kind of money for a watch that just tells time? Well, the problem you might be solving by selling me a Rolex is that I need status. I don't need to tell time. I need to put on a show. I need to let people know I'm successful. Maybe I'm a real estate agent or real estate broker, and I need to show people that I'm successful. So I'm going to drive a car that maybe is just a step up from the people who buy from me. I'm going to wear a suit that's a little bit of a step up. The problem you're solving is not that I need clothes. The problem you're solving is that I need to look a certain way. Then we need to articulate what Warren Buffett calls the point of difference or the durable competitive advantage. If you know anything about Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, chairman and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, you know that he's done okay over the years investing. And he knows a thing or two about what he's looking for when he invests in a company. Well, even if they're just buying an ice cream cone from your ice cream stand, people are investing in your company. They are investing the next 10 or 15 minutes of eating and just savoring that ice cream cone. They don't want to lick it once and throw it away. That's not a good investment. It needs to be good ice cream. Warren Buffett says that when he looks at a company, he wants to know what are they going to be doing in the next 20 years that sets them apart. What are they doing right now that makes them different from everyone else in the marketplace? That's why he buys brands like Coca-Cola. He buys Gillette. He says, look, I know Coke has a lot of snacks. They have juice drinks. They have a lot of different things going on. But in 20 years, they will still be making Coca-Cola. That is a durable competitive advantage. Marketers used to call this the unique selling proposition, but I like point of difference. That's my favorite term these days, the POD, the point of difference. Another great business writer, business guru, consultant, Tom Peters. If you can get your hands on anything by Tom Peters, follow his blog. He's great. Tom Peters says you can become distinct or you will become extinct. I'll say that again. You need to become distinct or you will become extinct. Set yourself apart. Be different. But all of these things go together to help you define the people who pay you, your customers. Now, why is that important? You need to know who your customers are because your customers and your buyers may be two different people. If I own a toy store, the customer may be the kids who come in to play with the train sets, but the buyer might be mom or grandma, right? It's somebody who's writing the check, handing over the credit card, forking over the cash. It's somebody who's paying. So your buyer is the person who pays you, the person who authorizes a check. Your customer can be the person who pays you, should be the person who pays you. Your customer also might just be the person who uses your products. Not everybody in our office gets a decision on the kind of paper clips we buy. There's usually one or two people who just go out and buy paper clips. We're all using paper clips, but not all of us are customers. When we talk about getting your financial house in order, I want to go to this just for a second because when we think about applying for a loan, we think about writing a business plan, we don't think a lot about preparing to prepare. we kind of get ahead of ourselves. And there are some things you're going to need to pull together because everybody is going to ask you for these same things. Number one is your bank statements. Not just you, but for your spouse, any other leader of the household, anybody else who's a head of household, who's in your home, who's paying bills, and maybe you pool your money with those folks. Maybe it's you live with your grandparents or your grandparents live with you, and everybody relies on that money to pay the mortgage, to pay the light bill. Those bank statements all have to go in the pile. There's a term for that. I'm going to get to that, I think, on the next slide, but we also are looking for 2 to 3 years of tax returns. Again, we want to see a pattern in how you have been able to generate income, how you've been able to take care of your money, ownership of assets and things like that. And sometimes the tax return is, I'm going to be quite honest with you, a little inside baseball knowledge here, but sometimes the tax return is just to see if you're the kind of person who files your taxes every year. Because there are a lot of people out there who don't. Even if you think you don't owe anything, sometimes it's good to get forgiveness instead of permission, but not with taxes. You don't want to be the person who gets a knock from the IRS or a letter from the IRS that says, show up at this office, we're going to audit you. Sometimes the tax return is just to make sure you have tax returns. We also want to see a business plan. The business plan is just the culmination of your idea poured out onto paper. Now remember the number 15. I mentioned it before. If you have more than about 15 pages, chances are nobody's going to want to read it. There's just not enough time. So keep it short, edit it down, and give us something that tells the story. We're also going to need something called a PFS, Personal Financial Statement. You can get this from any bank, from any native CDFI. You can get this from any, you can get this off Google. You can just Google Personal Financial Statement, pull one up and print it out. Personal Financial Statement is a balance sheet for your life. It is a list of what you owe and how much those things are, and a list of what you own and how much that's worth. And if the things that you own are more valuable than the money you owe, you have a positive personal wealth. You have money. Until then, we just have bills. For years, I only had bills. But we need to see, how do you handle your money? Are you spending money on things that are not conducive to getting you closer to your goal of having a business? I saw an interview with Ed Sheeran the other day. There might be some Ed Sheeran fans in the group. And Ed Sheeran just won a lawsuit that was brought against him by Marvin Gaye's estate. They said that he had ripped off one of the songs. And someone asked him, if you lost this lawsuit, would you write songs again? And Ed Sheeran said, no, I wouldn't do it, because it's not going to be enjoyable to me anymore. He said, I get up every day. I just want to write songs. I just want to make music. And if I'd lost, I don't think I would enjoy doing that anymore. The personal financial statement tells a lot about what you're passionate about. Are you passionate about racking up debt on clothes and credit card debt, shoes, things that wear out? Or are you passionate about putting your money into things that gain value over time? Again, these help us make a determination about how you're going to use the money we lend to you. There are other places to get money other than banks. I'm going to dig deep into one in just a second, but I want to talk about personal savings. Sometimes we don't want to touch personal savings. And for a long time, when the stock market was roaring and interest rates were at rock bottom, we were telling people, don't use your personal savings. Your money is working for you. Use someone else's money. Now, the tables have turned. Sometimes the money that you have in your checking account or your money market account, it's not making you any money. And interest rates on other things are costing you a lot of money. So it might be better for you to just use your money. It might be cheaper than borrowing. But that money is often limited. Sometimes it doesn't give you a personal cushion if you were to take the money out. The statistics right now on the number of people who could not come up with $2,000 in an emergency is astounding. How can we come up with $2,000 if we needed it in, say, 30 days? I'm not going to give you the numbers on that, by the way, because 92.7% of all numbers are made up on the spot. And I hope that joke communicates over voice only. But if we needed that $2,000 that we have in the bank next month for an emergency, and we've used it today for our business, we have no cushion. So sometimes using our own money is a worse deal, but you have to weigh those options. Personal savings can be the way you finance your business. Now, you can also go to the bank of FFA, friends, family, and acquaintances. But be careful. Starting a business is hard work. Starting a business is hard enough when you have people who love you and support you. But what if the people who love you are not only unsupportive, but they're actively working against you because they think you're nuts for wanting to start your own business? And there are people out there who do that. Why wouldn't you just go get a secure job? Just go get a real job. Why would you ever want to start a business? Well, there were a lot of people who said that pre-COVID. During COVID and since COVID, people have realized that there is no job security. There never really has been. And if we're going to take control of our financial destiny, our financial future, there's a good chance that's going to be by starting a business. And in fact, business startups have exploded over the last 3 years, higher than they've ever been. These are not major corporations. These are people starting a little sole proprietorship in their basement to start a little business. Maybe it's a little side hustle. Maybe it's something that they want to do that puts them a little further down the road to being able to leave the full-time job and start the business full-time. But when you have people who are actively working against you, you don't want to borrow their money. That makes things really, really uncomfortable. Friends and family and acquaintances, all these folks who know you, they're going to want to have a say in how your business works anyway. They're going to want to start giving you advice. They're going to want to start asking you, how are things doing, so that I can give you some input. It makes dinner, Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthdays, all those meals get very awkward because at some point your uncle's going to lean across the table and say, I think you're doing this wrong. Here's what I believe you need to be doing to fix things. Ouch. You really don't want that. If you do borrow money from friends, family, acquaintances, make sure you have a promissory note. Set this up as a business transaction, not a personal loan. Set it up as a business loan so that they know where the boundaries are. Believe it or not, people start businesses using pawn shops and credit cards. Credit cards more than you would think, because a lot of people walk into a bank and say, I need $15,000. And the bank scratches their head and says, hey, it's going to cost us just as much to do a $15,000 loan as it would to do a $150,000 loan. So, hey, here's a credit card application instead. And I've done it. I know a lot of people who've done it. They've started businesses with credit cards. It's a very expensive way to do it. It's a quick way to do it, but it's expensive. We don't think a lot about pawn shops anymore, except for, those guys down in Las Vegas, Rick Harris and his bunch at the Pawn Stars. But if you took all of the pawn shops in the country and you lumped them together as one entity, they would be the 7th largest lender in the country. They would be the equivalent of the 7th largest bank. That's how much money they lend. Now, they can create a financial death spiral because it can create an amount of debt that you can't get out of. Except with pawn shops, you're just, you're going to get a fraction of what the thing is worth, and you're going to lose the thing. Just wrap your head around that. You're going to be okay. And believe it or not, you don't have to be in Brooklyn, New York. It doesn't have to be Godfather setting where let me do my best Don Corleone voice here. You don't have to be dealing with the mob to be dealing with Bruno the Shark. In every small town I've ever been in every place I've ever lived, there's been somebody who's well known as the person who lends money for a very high interest rate. Now, they may not send Bruno out to bust up kneecaps, but they have other ways of making your life pretty miserable if you don't pay. So be very careful about these other things. So, okay, there's a gap in here. Remember, we've gone from banks, which are huge, they're everywhere, to let's borrow from my own personal bank account or my friends and family, or maybe even use a credit card. There is a middle ground. You may know about it, you may not. I'm going to give you a quick intro. There are these things called CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions. Community Development Finance Institutions are really an offshoot of minority-owned credit unions and minority-owned banks that started back at the turn of the last century, even in the late 1800s, where minority communities came together and said, we've got to have a way to focus banking money and banking services in this community because nobody else is going to do it. Well, in 1977, President Carter signed into law the Community Reinvestment Act. And it was a way to encourage, in fact, force FDIC insured banks to move money into underserved communities. And everybody got excited about it. 1977, yeah, the banks are going to start putting money into underserved communities, underfunded communities. And then crickets. Nothing. Now, Muhammad Yunus in Bangladesh was not the very first person to enter the microfinance industry, but he did it so well and he went so big that it got a lot of attention. He founded Grameen Bank and he focused on women. He focused on how much a $200 sewing machine could change not just a woman's life, but her family's entire economy. In fact, her family's future could be changed based on micro lending. And they built this on what's called a trust-based lending model. In other words, you and I are in this group, and you're going to make a decision. You're going to help make the decision, do I get the money? Okay, then you're going to lend me the money. I get the money from Grameen Bank. Now your job is to hold me accountable, hold my hand, help me out when I need help. Maybe I'm a florist and it's a very busy Valentine's Day. Everybody else in that lending circle is going to come in and help me deliver floral arrangements so that I can pay my bills. Because if I don't pay my loan, it affects your ability to borrow money from that pool. And this was a very good way of doing small microfinance loans. And in the 1980s, when Bill Clinton was governor of Arkansas, he met Muhammad Yunus. And the CDFI fund, as part of the U.S. Treasury, was part of a larger law that he signed into law in 1994. It was a way to activate the Community Reinvestment Act, to start forcing the banks to do what they should have been doing all along. And it was supposed to sunset in 2004. It had a 10-year shelf life. Now, economist Milton Friedman once said that there's nothing so permanent as a temporary government program. But the reason CDFIs have stuck around even after our shelf life has long gone is because CDFIs work. It's a great investment for the American taxpayer. It's a great investment for communities. It's a great investment for banks. It's a great investment for people who are looking to start a business and don't have anywhere else to turn. Right now, there are over 1,400 CDFIs operating in this country. I want you to look at the middle of the screen there, though. 69 native CDFIs in 27 states. That is nowhere near enough. Just a year or two ago, we had 72. We've actually lost 4 and gained 1 in the last year. So we're now at 69 native CDFIs. There's still a lot of tribes that are not served by native CDFIs, which is why I'm giving you the CDFI locator. Where you live, you may not have your own native CDFI in your back door, but chances are there's going to be another CDFI that overlays your geography. They're going to be able to help serve you in some capacity. Again, you're going to get my phone number. If you have trouble locating somebody, you let me know. We may even get to the point in the conversation where we're talking about how to help your tribe start its own native CDFI. In fact, I'm on the board of the Native CDFI Network. Very proud to be able to serve in that capacity. I've given you the nativecdfi.net address there. I encourage you to go look at that, see the good work that native CDFIs are doing in Indian country, and it is amazing how many lives can be drastically improved with a small amount of money and leveraging the knowledge, the local assistance that you can get through a native CDFI. But this industry stands in the gap between what most people think in terms of where they should get money and the last resort, where they turn to. And in Cherokee, we were built to be a lender of last resort. If you can't get a bank loan, you come to Sequoia Fund. Now, after about 25 years, well, in November, it will be 25 years. We're the place people come to first. We're the first place people turn when they need money. And I like that. That's a great feeling to know that we have kind of, we've built that brand recognition. We built that trust that people know that if we're having to turn them away, there's a really good reason. Chances are they've got a great credit score. They don't belong with us. They need to be at a bank. We're going to help them get there. Just because they don't get a loan from us doesn't mean they're not our friend. We're gonna help them do what they need to do to get a bank loan. Now, bank loans are not evil. I don't want to give that impression. I talk smack about banks a lot, but banks have, in most cases, cheaper money, more flexible lending programs. They offer you things like checking accounts. They can offer you escrow accounts. They can offer you debit cards, credit cards. They can offer you back office services like payroll, bill pay, all kinds of things. So don't think that I'm just blanket poo-pooing banks here. There's a lot of good that you can do if you're bankable, but a lot of people aren't bankable. We're going to help you get there. When you turn to a bank or when you turn to us, you do have to know how much money you need. Now, the graph here is just for illustrative purposes. It doesn't really mean anything, but you do have to know how much money you need. You need to know that you can't just walk in and ask for $1 million, because chances are you might need significantly less than that. We have people who walk in our door and say, I want to borrow $100,000. They've never borrowed $100,000 in their lives. They wouldn't know how to pay it back if they had it. That's a lot of money. We help them figure out how much they need. We help them get specific. There's a small business center, small business development center. There's score.org, SCORE. I'm going to put that down here. Score.org. That's the Service Corps of Retired Executives. They are nationwide. They're funded by the Small Business Administration. They do 75% of their counseling online. So if you've got an internet connection, you can find someone who can help you determine how much money your business is going to need. And when you do a business plan, a lot of people will have you start putting a lot of different financial stuff into that business plan. You know, it's kind of like overpacking for a trip. You think you're going to need stuff and then you don't. I'm going to teach you how to pack for this trip minimally, using only the things you need. And those two things are a break-even analysis and a cash flow projection. Again, you're going to get this slide deck, so you're going to get this information. But I want you to be thinking about your break-even point as a high jump bar. We deal with this on a daily basis. We've got a coffee shop that knows exactly how many cups of coffee they have to sell every day, every week, every month to hit their break-even point, and then start making a profit, because everything you earn over the break-even point is profit or profitable. You've got to know where that point is, because if you don't know how high the bar is, you're going to miss it. But if you know how high the bar is, you're going to know what you need to do to be able to get over it every single day. Here's what this looks like. In every business, we have a blue line there, which is the fixed costs or the overhead. Those are the costs that it may not be the same every month, but they don't change based on the number of customers. Your electric bill, your gas bill, not going to be the same every month. I mean, it could. You may be on a fixed payment plan, which is fine. But even if there's a little bit of variation in that electric bill every month, it's still fixed. Because whether you have 1 million customers or nobody walks through the door, you still have to keep the lights on. On top of that, we have variable costs. And you can see as that line moves from left to right, the more units you sell, the more things you do. If you're selling physical products, the more variable costs you incur. If you don't sell things, if you are a consultant or a coach, you work with your brain, you don't have a physical product, maybe you just perform a service, you don't have a variable cost. All you have is the blue line. But you notice your sales always start at zero. Once you cross these lines represent your break-even point. Now, if you sell a physical product, your break-even point is not until you get to that Y line over there. You have to sell a certain number of units and earn a certain number of dollars, then you hit that break-even point. Up until that point, you're covering your costs. You're not making money. So I've given you two different calculations here. One is if you want to figure out what are your total break-even units. What is your break-even point? How many hamburgers do I have to sell? How many cups of coffee do I have to sell? How many miles do I have to drive in my delivery business? This is your units. There's a cost for that. There's a calculation for that. Now, sales price per unit. Let's say I'm selling my hamburgers for $5 and my variable cost per unit is $2. That means that my contribution margin or my profit margin is $3. So if I have $30 in total fixed costs and I have a $3 contribution margin, I have to sell 10 hamburgers to break even. I've also given you the same calculation to come up with your break-even sales dollars. And when you run this both ways, you should be able to see what is it going to take for you to break even so that you can start making some money. This is another one of those calculations. If you have a little trouble with it, give me a call. We'll walk you through it. I'm depending on your level of computer comfort, I could even send you a spreadsheet that you can put in, and it'll help calculate this for you. But again, this just figures out how high the bar is that you've got to get over every single day. The break even is important because it helps you predict the future. It tells you what the changes are going to be based on your pricing. If you raise your price, if you lower your price, what happens to your bottom line? You can analyze the relationship between your fixed and variable costs. A lot of people put a lot of effort into reducing variable costs. They start to sell cheaper products. They start to let their quality slip, and people notice that, versus trying to deal with the overhead cost or the fixed cost, which means maybe you call Verizon and lower your cell phone bill by half with one phone call. When you bring that fixed cost line down, when you bring that blue line down, your variable cost line comes down with it, and these purple lines move left. In other words, your break-even bar gets lower. It helps you predict the effects of cost and efficiency changes on your profitability. If you make changes that move these lines, what does that do for you? What does that do for your company? Takes a little getting used to, but once you've figured this out with some minor tweaks, every time you change something, maybe you add new products, you have a supplier change, you just go in and tweak this a little bit, and it gives you your brand new break-even point, and it keeps you it really does help paint the lines on the playing field, so to speak. It keeps you in bounds. Now, your cash flow, and one of the tools that I'm going to give you at the end is a cash flow spreadsheet. We don't really care about profit at this point. I can make you look profitable even though you're dead broke, you're bankrupt. I can make you look unprofitable even though you've got money piled up in every corner of the house. Profit only happens one time a year, and that's when your accountant says so. And if you're profitable and you owe taxes, great, pop the cork on the champagne, celebrate. I've always said that paying taxes is an okay thing, only because Uncle Sam is a pretty good barometer of your success. If you owe taxes, it means you made money. It also may mean that you need to get another accountant who can help you minimize your tax exposure, but that's another story. That's another day. What we're going to talk about, though, right now is cash. Cash is the lifeblood of your business. If your lifeblood runs out, your business grinds to a halt. It stops. We're only focused on when the cash comes in and when the cash goes out. We want to look at changes in cash over time. Maybe I know that every year after a major holiday, my cash is going to be great, but my inventory is going to be low. And that's the time I need to go buy new inventory. Christmas shops, people who sell Christmas ornaments, Christmas decorations, Christmas trees. Every January and February, they go to huge shows all over the country and they buy stuff like crazy. But they do that because they are flush with cash. Their inventory is gone, but they're not going to do it in August because it's too late in August. They won't get the material in time to sell it for Christmas, and their cash is probably not going to be as much as they had back in January and February. Now, remember I said earlier that everybody in the household, every bill that you have needs to be taken into consideration. We're not just going to look at what your business is capable of creating, and we're not just going to look at the bills your business is going to incur to help make a decision. We look at something called global cash flow. Global cash flow means that there's more to your life than just your business. You have groceries to buy. You have a cable bill. You have a satellite bill. You have kids who need clothes and shoes for school next year. You have all kinds of expenses in your personal life that are going to represent a drain on the finances of your business. And it could go the other way. Trust me. I've seen a lot of people pour money from their personal life into their business to keep it going. But we have to look at where all of your money comes from and where all of your money goes, so that we have a good idea about how your business fits into your life. So when I say think globally, act locally, I am saying we have to think in terms of all of the cash that revolves around you in your life, and what does that mean for your business. We also have to know, what are you going to do with the money? You can spend that money on facilities, real estate, structures, put out a new warehouse, or sign a lease. FFE, this is, remember, FFA was friends, family, and acquaintances. This is furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Furniture, fixtures, and equipment. We call it FFE for short. This is the stuff that makes you make money. It gives you it's your tools. It gives you the ability to make money. It's the booths that your diners sit in to eat the food you make. It's necessary. It's also inventory. It's not the booths and the tables. It's the actual food. It's the items that you sell. It's if you have a floral business or a nursery, it's your planters, it's your containers. It's the stuff that goes home with your customer. And it's your working capital. Working capital is going to be your insurance, your rent. It's going to be your payroll. It's also going to be, if you're growing those plants, it's going to be your feed, your seed, your fertilizer, your fuel. It's going to be the things that keep the bills paid until your business starts to generate cash. And if you don't get anything else out of this, I want you to focus on the next two lines on this slide. Make sure you're borrowing long-term money for long-term assets. In other words, if you buy a building, you don't want to take out a credit card loan to put that building up. You want to be able to amortize that loan over 30 years. You want to be able to depreciate that building over 30 years. You also don't want to buy inventory with a 30-year note, or even a 10-year note, maybe even a 5-year note. You want to borrow long-term money for long-term things and short-term money for short-term things. So inventory, you might use the credit card. You might use a line of credit. You might use a short-term, maybe a 1-year note. And we've been known to get very creative. We've done this with cattle, where they didn't actually owe us any money until the cattle went to the slaughterhouse. So CDFIs can get very creative in how we help you match the money to the need. You also have to be able to explain how this is going to be a good thing for your business. Is it going to make you stronger? Is it going to improve your productivity? Going to make you better, stronger, faster, using the $6 million man, the bionic man lingo there. Is it going to make you better, stronger, faster? Is it going to help you enter new markets? Is it going to take you to places where you can access new customers? Is it going to provide capital so that you can grow, so that you can scale your business, so that you can do more, get more out of your business without having to put more into your business? So let's talk about what happens when things don't go as planned. As a lender, we want to know that you have a fallback plan. We want to know that you have a contingency plan, a worst case scenario. What happens if things don't go the way you think they will? I call this the beans and rice plan. I know in one business that I had for about a year, we ate beans and rice because it was what we could afford, because we chose to fuel the business rather than maintain a lifestyle and starve the business of cash. Do you have an emergency budget in your personal life? What can you cut out of your personal life? Can you go back to the beans and rice? Can you go back to just eating cheap food until the business gets back on solid footing? Again, when you start serving inferior products, when you start selling products that are inferior, when you start deferring the maintenance on your signs, and the light bulbs go unreplaced, and things like that, people notice. They notice. So you need to have an emergency budget for you and a contingency plan for the business. We want to know that you're weighing the risks. I love it when somebody comes into the office and says, hey, my business is great. I don't have any risks. There are no risks. This is a risk-proof business. I have never seen one of those. We'd like to believe it's so, but there are market risks. In other words, people's tastes change. What they want changes. What they need changes. There are economic risks. Maybe you rely on your customers being able to borrow money, and with rising interest rates and persistent inflation, they can't do that. Maybe there are inherent risks, risks that are baked into your business. If I have a tree company, if I have a roofing company, I have people who are working high up off the ground. That's a risk. If someone gets hurt, it not only hurts them, it could very well jeopardize the survival of my business. We have to take all of these things into account. But what if it goes better than you thought it would? Having a very successful business brings issues of its own. How are we going to monitor and control how we burn through cash? Maybe we're so successful that we're not keeping an eye on the fuel gauge and our car is running out of gas. We're racing down the road and we forgot to fill up. We didn't go get a loan. We didn't add money to the mix. And all of a sudden, we're very successful and out of business. We have people issues. When we start to grow a business, we add people. And people are messy. Humans are messy. I don't know if you've looked around lately, but humans are pretty messy beings. We need policies, we need procedures, processes, we need training, we need skills. All of these things can spell trouble for our business. If we don't put the right people in the right places with the right skills and it's the right fit. Sometimes we hire people because they have a good skill set and they're terrible culture fit. We have a pretty laid back atmosphere and we've got somebody who's just a hard charger, or maybe we are all type A hard chargers and we get somebody who just doesn't like to come in before noon. Sometimes having the skill set is not enough. So people issues in a growing business can be dangerous. And you could be the problem. In a fast growing business, if things are growing faster than you ever imagined, it's going to feel like you went to sleep on a rowboat and you woke up on a cruise ship. You're still on the same ocean, but the circumstances are very different. Do you have the skill set to pilot the cruise ship? Do you have the management skill to run the number of people you have on a cruise ship versus the number of people who would fit in your rowboat? I've seen too many business owners choke their business to death because they were not willing to turn it over to a professional manager or even sell the business. They wanted to hang on to their baby as long as they could until that baby could not survive anymore. I don't want to see you do that to a business. So you need to have a plan for at what point will you be willing to let go. A couple of final things that we want to talk about. We've just come through COVID. And COVID was not the first disaster we've ever faced, and it won't be the last. In fact, the next disaster we face may not be global. It may be hyper-local. Here in Cherokee, about a decade ago, we had a major road closure up on the Blue Ridge Parkway, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, the road that goes through the park. It just caved in. 200 yards of road just slid right off the mountain. People couldn't get to us. Well, they could, but it was a much longer trip. And businesses on that end of town suffered especially. So we may not be facing a global pandemic, but we may be facing a local disaster. Maybe the business next door to us burns and it closes us down for a while. So we have to be ready for all kinds of things. Now, let's focus on your business request. Let's focus on that loan for a second. I'm going to tell you what we're looking for and some things to be cognizant of. One is communicate early, frequently, and honestly. If you don't communicate with your lender, they're not going to be able to help you. You need to be able to Give them answers. Provide information quickly when they request it, but don't be a thorn in their side. We have found that the people who call every single day and say, where's my money? Where's my money? Where's my money? When can I get my loan? When can I close my loan? Those people are usually the slowest payers. Be responsive, but don't be in our way. Polish your business plan. Every time you get a no, doesn't mean it's forever no. It means let's fix something. You know, a bank needs 1,000 reasons to say yes and only one reason to say no. And CDFIs are the almost exact opposite. We start from a place of we want to say yes to this idea. How are we going to get there? There may be some fundamental flaws in your business plan, and we've got to go fix those. So be open to ideas. Be ready to implement those ideas into your business plan. Be organized. Again, people who are organized in their personal lives generally do better. Their business performs better than people who are kind of flying by the seat of their pants. Be willing to invest in yourself. Have some cash set aside, but start now. There's an old saying that the worst time to find a lawyer is when you need a lawyer. Well, the same can be said for a lender. The worst time to find a lender is when you need a lender. We would rather people come in and talk to us about their ideas. Talk to us about what we look for in a business plan. Talk to us about what we want in a proposal, in a loan package. Talk to us about the types of businesses we fund. Get a whole picture of us. Let us get a picture of them so that the day they walk in with that plan and that application, we're ready. We're both ready on both sides of that equation. We're ready to do this. If you start now and you start building that relationship, things are going to move much quicker for you after you've turned in your application. Today, not only are we on the other side of COVID, but we're dealing with, again, rising interest rates. The Fed has indicated they're going to continue to raise interest rates. There's no end in sight for that. It's going to make money more expensive. We're seeing inflation that just will not stop, and that's the big reason the Fed keeps raising interest rates. Right now, the lenders who 2 years ago would have said, yes, please, let us write you a check. Let us get you this money. They're saying no. And they're saying no for a variety of reasons. So just understand that no doesn't have to be a forever no, but expect a no. Expect a no. Expect to have to go back to the drawing board and fix your plan. There are tighter underwriting criteria now. People are they're requiring more equity, more of your own money in the deal. They're requiring more collateral. They're requiring shorter terms. They're requiring stronger management teams. So just understand that you're going to have to do a little extra lifting to get where you want to be. Some industries are not attractive to certain lenders right now. If you've got and a lot of folks are looking at a commercial real estate collapse, or at least some level of crisis within the next 12 months. So if I have a lot of businesses in my loan portfolio that are in the commercial construction space, I may not want to lend to anybody right now. We may start pulling back on that. In fact, several years ago, we had a couple of banks who said, you know what, we want out of the hotel business. We're just getting out of the hotel. We've got too many hotels. Not attractive to us right now. If you do want to be attractive as a startup, sell something. Prove your concept. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be formal. Bring us some sales records. Show us that you've sold something. This is proof that people want and need what you have. Consider looking into a business partner. Again, we're looking at tougher requirements on business partnerships, on management teams, but don't quit. Do not give up. Remember, no is not always a forever no. Now, in the 2 minutes that we have left, if you want to jump in with your questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those. But I want you to take note of this first link, the bit.ly/NLC Financing 2023. These are all case sensitive. Everything here is lowercase. That link will get you everything else. That link will get you the business plan template. It will get you the Excel worksheet for your cash flow. It will get you the slide deck, which will give you everything else, and you can refer back to it. And go ahead and make sure you download these other things too. Go ahead and download today's PDF version of these slides. You can open that on any computer. And then the little one sheet there on preparing for business loan. Now, I told you in the beginning, this is going to be like drinking through a fire hose. And I don't lie. So I know this has felt pretty overwhelming. Take a deep breath. Write down my phone number and my email address. I'm always happy to talk to folks who've been in my programs. If there's something I can help you with, some place I can point you toward to get you the answers you need, I'm here for you. I'm happy to do that. And I really do appreciate you being with me this afternoon. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Awista and give you your day back. I see our time is up. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Russ. You did an amazing job. It was a wonderful webinar. And as always, the webinar is recorded and will be posted onto our website. I went ahead and just launched the survey. Please let us know what you thought about today's webinar. Every little bit of information helps Russ and myself know what you guys would like to see in the future for webinars. And if anything you would like more detail on, that would always be helpful. As always, our next webinar is going to be May 18th, beginning record keeping for small businesses. It will be presented by Mark Thompson, Executive Director of Indian Dispute Resolution Services. The webinar will be at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 12 p.m. Mountain, and 11 a.m. Pacific. As always, registration is free, so please don't forget to register. Feel free to access this and any other recorded webinars online and on our website at www.nativelearningcenter.com. We have a completed webinars tab and a recorded webinars section. You can click on any one of the webinars that we have done for the past 18 months. Feel free to view them and share them with your friends and colleagues. Check out our upcoming events as well on our social media sites, such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Snapchat. We even have a podcast titled Hope a Thing, a Native American podcast. You can find that on Simplecast, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Once again, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it. And thank you so much, Russ, for a wonderful webinar. I hope everybody has an amazing day.